So, I used to think that self worth was how I presented myself to other people. And so, by that, I mean, like how it showed up was if I am, excuse me, I did not realize I had another window open. So, by that, I mean, I would, if I was this perfect person for other people, if I presented myself as this perfect person, if I gave all of my time and my energy to other people, if I was always doing all the things, showing up and being helpful for others, sacrificing my time, always being the one that can get things done for other people, then I would be valuable to other people. And because I'm showing up for others, I'm doing things to present myself in this way that it was valuable. I'm a valuable person, right? And I found my self-worth through how what I can do for other people and through how I could show up for other people. And what I've learned about that is over time things weren't really things were becoming out of balance. So it was through that process of like how I started to build my self-worth was recognizing certain aspects of that perfectionism. I definitely feel like um, I kind of say sometimes I'm this recovering perfectionist because there was definitely a time in my life where I felt like I had to be perfect. I was doing all these things for other people, and I had to um, always sacrifice my time and energy for other people. But I thought that I was doing a good thing. I thought because I wanted to help people. I wanted to support other people. But what I wasn't doing was putting enough of that energy and time into myself. And so it was through that I really started to recognize that things weren't, that something was off. So, how I started to build my self worth was first through recognizing certain things. So, one of the first things was okay, something is out of balance, something isn't working. Why is it that when I'm doing these things that I feel like I want to do, right? I want to be there for other people. I want to show up a certain way and present myself. I was recognizing like where was this really coming from? Is it a need or is it a desire, right? So sometimes I felt like I needed to show up in this way. Um, so, as this perfect person, or I needed to show up and always be, the super helper, or I needed to always give so much of myself, my time, my energy, my mental capacity away to other people because that meant I was a good person. And I wanted to be a good person, right? But I was realizing that I recognized like it didn't feel good. Like I actually felt drained. And I was conflicted because how can I be a good person and want to do all these things, but I feel drained. I feel depleted. Like it just feels like I I I don't know what's going on. Like I didn't understand that. And so I was really feeling conflicted with that. So recognizing that something was off there, and that I was out of balance in some way. That I didn't really fully understand energy at the time. So this is like, yeah, many years ago. I didn't really fully recognize what that represented. So when I started to recognize that, oh, okay, something's out of balance here. Why is that out of balance? What does that mean? Right? So sometimes we'll hear people say, oh, something's out of alignment, something's out of balance, which I've said in many videos, right? But it's like, what does that actually mean? How does that show up? So in the same way, I talked about how my self-worth, how it was showing up was, oh, if I'm this perfect person, then oh, if I do all these things for other people, oh, if I keep giving my time and I'm this person that can be there for other people, then I'm valuable. I'm presenting myself as a valuable person. That's how it was showing up, but it was coming from, was it what was the need there? Was it a need? Was it a desire? I had a desire to be of service to other people and to be the good friend and to be the good sister and to be the perfect coworker, the perfect employee, things like that. Um, but I was like, okay, well, something is not feeling good anymore. So recognition is the first thing. Recognizing certain things. So I was recognizing that I was out of balance, that something just felt off, and I didn't know how to articulate that. Um, I started recognizing that even though I wanted to present myself in a certain way, I wanted to show up for other people, I wanted to be able to um, help other people. I wanted to be able to do all the things that there came a time where I started to not enjoy it. As actually I started to become a bit resentful, and then I felt guilty for being resentful for not wanting to do these things. Like I want to do these things, but then why am I feeling bad? Um, and not resentful for doing the things, but I was resenting myself because I didn't understand why I was feeling drained, why I was feeling like this isn't really, like, something's off. Um, so knowing that, oh, well, this is depleting me, this doesn't feel good, then I was really starting to feel like a bad person. And so I felt guilty around that. Right. So then there's that that's just an example of like inner conflict. So another way that showed up was really recognizing that I needed to really understand or really get clarity on like what this actually meant. What does it actually mean to feel or to be this kind of good person, to be valuable. And by valuable, I'm not talking about some monetary aspect because in essence, we are all priceless. But when it comes to self-worth and how I define it, right? Initially it was how I presented myself, how I presented value to other people. Like if I'm valuable, right? If I present myself, like what can I do for others? Because how can I be a contributor to other people? How can I present myself as valuable so I can help other people, right? And the turning point for me was like, oh, it doesn't matter how I show up for other people if I don't put that energy into myself first. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way many times. And one of the reasons why I'm sharing this is because, if you are at a place where you are noticing that you are feeling like you are doing so much for other people and you're not seeing that return, right? The return on investment, the return that you pour into other people, you're not receiving that, or you're starting to notice some resentment, you're starting to feel drained, you're starting to feel like you're not in a place where you're actually enjoying the things that you're doing, or how you're not enjoying how you're showing up, you're not even recognizing who you are anymore. It's like, who am I? Like, who am I now? What does this even mean for me? What does this even look like? Like, if that's the thing, then you will definitely, this is definitely an opportunity for you to start to shift your perspective. That's definitely what happened to me. And hopefully the things that I'm sharing and the process that I experienced is helpful. Um, and so this is where, when I started to recognize that um, how these things were showing up, like, oh, okay, self-worth isn't about how I present value to others, because that's coming from a different place. It's really about, how do I present value to myself? Even though I'm this, there's no monetary value on worth, right? This is about like like how you recognize value within yourself. And so, like I mentioned, I had to learn that the hard way. I definitely had to, and that's part of the process. These the trial and errors, and how that showed up is through relationships, all types of relationships, whether it was romantic, professional, platonic friendships, family members, or things like that. Because sometimes it was like you start to attract people that will challenge how you value yourself. That's how it'll show up. So think about, do you have anyone in your life right now that is challenging, or that is challenging you in some way, challenging your how you value yourself, is allowing you or forcing you to recognize areas in yourself that you feel like um, is you're starting to question, like, how do I value myself? You know, my own, like questioning your own self-esteem, or forcing you to kind of look at how you view yourself, how you show up for yourself. Because in order for you to want to show up for other people, you have to be able to show up for yourself first. In order for you to um, give for others, you have to give to yourself, right? So when it comes to being in balance, if you're not doing that for yourself, then it's going to be eventually, like, it's going to be hard for you to do that for other people. You're going to get out of balance at some point. Um, and so I mentioned need versus desire. If you feel like you need to do these things, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, like, is it coming from a place of lack? And there's different, like, you can have responsibilities. Yeah, we all have responsibilities. You might have family, you have kids, you have a partner, um, you're running a business, whatever those things are. There's a difference with like having responsibilities versus like where it stems from. I need to do this for other people, to please other people and make them happy, even though I'm not happy, even though I, am not in a good place, or this is the only way that I can, um, that the only way that I can be of value is if I'm doing something for other people. And then you're not doing anything for yourself, right? So it was how those things were showing up. Um, Now, when it comes to, so relationships is how it can show up. It can show up in, definitely showed up for me in, when it comes to money. Definitely feel like I was just depleting. Like there was this lack of reciprocity there. It's like I'm doing all this, whether it was time, it was energy, it was emotions, money. Like those are the things that showed up. I actually did a post on my Instagram. It should still be there. It says that, expenses are more than just, it's not just about money, right? It's your emotions, it's your time, it's your energy. And so I was noticing how my lack of self-worth and my lack of self-esteem, how that was showing up in those areas. So, when it comes to emotions and that emotional reciprocity in relationships with other people, it's like, why am I giving all this to this person? Why am I giving all this time? Why am I giving all this energy? And it's not. I'm not getting that return. It's not balanced, right? There's no reciprocity. I'm giving, this person's taking, taking, taking. Why is that happening? So recognizing those things, and that was kind of the first step in how I started to build my self-worth, is recognizing that what was happening and how it was showing up. Um, and that next phase was recognizing that I also needed, like, what am I going to do about this? Now that I have this awareness, now what? What does this mean for me now? What do I need to change? What do I need to do to change this? And will changing things, like, how will that affect other people? What will people think about me if I do this? So when it comes to rebuilding self-worth, the next thing that I did was really start to pay attention to how much I was actually um, concerned about what other people thought about me versus what I felt and thought about myself. So I was placing too much emphasis and too much value on what other people might think of me or what I wanted other people to think of me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Why do I do that? What does that come from? And it was like this need to please other people, this need to be this perfect person. Because if I'm this perfect person, or if I'm doing all these things, then I look good to other people. I'm like, man, where does that stem from? It's like, oh, it goes back to need versus desire. I felt this need to do this, and that actually stemmed from my ego. So ego doesn't always come from a prideful place, or like you're trying to show off. Um, you're trying to be, this, arrogant person. Ego can also stem from, perfectionism. It can stem from not feeling good enough, and you have to overcompensate for either lack of awareness of how you value yourself, or um, this could be, past experiences, past life experiences, or, like traumas that you've experienced in your life. And it can stem from that place. And so that's kind of where I was realizing, like, oh, this is coming from an ego place. This is coming from a place of ego, and how, because I wanted to present myself in a certain way to other people, right? And I was like, well, if I do this, then I'm valuable to others. And I felt this need to do that. And I was like, okay, that's actually from the ego place. Because if I don't do these things, then how other people view me? And I really wanted to control that. I wanted to control how other people saw me, what other people thought about me. I wanted to control that. This is very Virgo. Very Virgo of me. This isn't exclusive to, to Virgo signs, but I'm realizing, like, I've come across a lot of Virgos where, we kind of do that. But you don't have to be a Virgo to experience this, right? But that's how it was showing up. I was just like, ooh. Now, those steps that I kind of just showcased, or that I kind of walked you through, what I learned over time was that is actually a part of that is shadow work. So it was, and I kind of stumbled into it through, like I mentioned, I had to learn this the hard way and the long way. So it took me years, okay, many, many years to kind of get to that point of, recognizing these things and starting to question these things. But that, when I look back on those experiences, like, that was actual shadow work of going deeper into going into that unconscious aspect of myself and questioning, like, well, if I'm showing up in this way as this kind of perfectionist and this people pleaser, wanting to do all these things, why am I doing that? Where is it stemming from? So when it comes to shadow work, it's starting to question and be curious about why you're doing certain things. So you show up in like the things that you're doing consciously, that you're doing, start to question, like, what are you not recognizing? What is the unconscious, like, underbelly of these actions that you're taking and these things that you're doing? Because sometimes you don't realize what you're doing and how you're doing them and why you're doing them. And shadow work, which people can be scared or intimidated by shadow work, and I have many videos on my channel where I talk about shadow work, so definitely check those out. And I will I'll post a link to a playlist that I have where I have some videos on shadow work. But really, like, in essence, shadow work is about just starting to be curious, lean into and question where certain things stem from, how your unconscious beliefs, your unconscious thoughts and experiences, how those actually are, what is actually driving the actions that you are consciously taking. Why do you do certain things? Why do you have a certain reaction from certain experiences compared to others? So sometimes there are things that you are not consciously aware of. And when you start to question those things, now you're kind of going into your shadow self and the parts of yourself that you typically avoid, that you're typically unaware of, that you typically want to stay closed off from because there is pain there. There is trauma there. There is things that don't feel good all the time. But shadow work can actually be very healing. And shadow work is an aspect of inner healing. Why? Because you're going into those parts of yourself that, for whatever reason, at certain times in your life, this present life or in past lives, you have buried these things, or you weren't in a position to deal with those things. And so, what I have noticed through shadow work and through kind of navigating inner healing, because inner healing is about going within, it's about exploring your emotions, your thoughts, and doing it from a place of love. Do you love yourself enough to want to get some clarity, want to get to the source and the root of why you're doing certain things, how it's showing up, so you can shift it, so you can change it? Are you at a point where you're willing to do that? Because self-love, and this is what I learned about self-love. Love is a vibration. It's a very high vibrational energy, right? Love is energy. And inner healing and shadow work, like doing those things, you can do that from a place of love. You can recognize there's things about yourself that you don't like, that there's things about yourself that you might even hate. There's things about yourself that you want to change. You can recognize those things, right? It's like, okay, these are things that I'm experiencing. These are things that I'm noticing about myself, but I actually love myself enough to want to explore this. I love myself enough to want to do something more. I love myself enough to want something different for myself, even though I don't know what that is, even though I don't know how to articulate it, even though, I don't know how to start really. So sometimes it's, that's how self-love was showing up for me of like, okay, I want to do something different. I want to understand like what this actually means. And I want to be able to do the things that I love, the things that I enjoy, and not feel depleted and drained. I want to help other people. I want to show up and do things for other people, but I no longer want to do it from a place of trying to control how other people view me or how other people think of me. Right? Because that's really what it was. I was trying to control other people's, thoughts and opinions of me. And that's why I wanted to present myself in a certain way. Because if I did that, it's like, oh, well, then people will think I'm valuable because I'm presenting myself as this valuable person. And that's how I can control how other people think about me. It's like, no, I can't control that. I cannot control that. So that was definitely a place of ego, right? It's like, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. Why am I doing that? Why do I feel like I need to control other people's thoughts about me? And the lessons that I learned is like, I can't control that. So what is within my realm of control? How I love myself, the healing that I do for myself, exploring like where this all stemmed from. That's where things started to really shift. And it's okay if you are at a place where you don't feel like you love yourself enough yet. So don't feel like you have to love yourself at a certain level in order to start doing the work for yourself. You don't have to. And you can, like, if you are at a place where you don't feel like you love yourself enough, you can also surround yourself with people that love you more than you have the capacity to do for yourself. So sometimes that's necessary. And that's also a journey. And self-worth and self-love and self-esteem, these things kind of go hand in hand. And there were definitely times in my life where one outweighed the other a little bit, but these things work together, right? There's this integration between self-worth, self-esteem, self-love, and different areas of your life. You're going to recognize that, oh, okay, well, there's a bit more here, or I'm leveling up here, and it ebbs and flows. Self-love supports self-worth. Self-worth supports self-esteem, right? They all kind of integrate. So how that shows up for you and how you recognize that will ebb and flow throughout different phases of your life. But I think it's very important. I just want to, definitely share that if you are at a place where you feel like you don't love yourself enough, don't feel like um, there's a certain like level of self-love that you need in order to show up for yourself. But you can definitely find a community that can love you enough and love you through it as you're trying to find, as you're navigating your own self-love journey, as you are exploring your own, like as you're trying to navigate like and rebuild your self-worth and what that means for you. Because here's the thing with self-worth, you can't, like other people can tell you all day that, oh, you're valuable, oh, you're worthy, oh, you're priceless. People can tell you that all day. But self-worth is about your personal view of yourself. So if you are doubting your own pricelessness, if you're doubting like your own worthiness, that's going to show up. It's going to show up in your relationships. It's going to show up in your money. It's going to show up in your emotions. It's going to show up in your career. Like it's going to show up in usually in multiple areas. But there's definitely going to be one place in particular where it's just going to be like this flashing light or this really heavy feeling. And that's what's beautiful about the universe. It presents situations that allow you to recognize these things and challenge these things. So it could be a person, it could be an experience, it could be a situation. Like, why do I keep ending up with people in my life that keep draining me? Why do I keep ending up in jobs that deplete me? Or why do I keep, always feeling this way? Well, it's an opportunity for you to explore that. That's how it showed up for me, right? So just, I hope that this was helpful. And just a quick recap, I have been talking about how I rebuilt my self-worth, how I built my self-worth. And I talked about how it was presenting what I thought self-worth was, what I thought it was in the beginning. And those steps to me building my self-worth was definitely about me recognizing certain things, me recognizing that I was out of balance, that something wasn't right, that I was doing all these things that it started to not feel good, and that I wanted to be this good person, but why am I not feeling good if I'm wanting to be this good person? And recognizing that I was really trying to control what other people thought about me, trying to keep up appearances, trying to, keep up a certain, reputation about myself. And I was really trying to control other people's thoughts or other people's perspective and opinion of me. And that stemmed from a place of ego. So there was a need to try to control things. And that, ego can show up in very different ways. And that's how it was showing up for me. So you don't have to be some arrogant person. You can want to be you can be a very giving, loving person. And through that, right, you're trying to control things to be this perfect person. That's how it was showing up for me. Those are things that I recognize. The question I have for you is, how is it showing up for you? How is it showing up for you? How do you currently define self-worth. And I'm not saying don't go and Google what self-worth, the definition of self-worth. How is it actually showing up for you? What does it mean for you right now? Right? So for me at that time, back in the day, many years ago, it was, oh, it's how I present value to other people. If I show up this way, people are going to think I'm valuable. And it's not about what, for me, it wasn't about price. It wasn't about some monetary value or things like that. It was about, oh, I want people to want me. I want people to need me to do things. I want people to, yeah, to need me to do things for them. Why do I want that? What is that? Where did that stem from? Right. So it was those questions. And it was through questioning those things, trying to be curious about what the source of that was, which in itself is shadow work. So if you've never done shadow work before, the easiest way to start is by questioning and being curious and leaning into the things that are creating your experiences. Like, why is this happening? Or why do I feel this way? Start to question those things, be curious about those things. So that's the next step that I did. And then from there, I started to really start to go within and explore my emotions a bit more and my beliefs about myself and what I needed to do for, and why I needed to do things for certain people, right? And that was that aspect of inner healing, of leaning into actually what I needed, why I felt this need to want to control how other people viewed me, and then stepping back from the things that were keeping me in that cycle, keeping me in that loop, and changing it to, okay, like, let me step away from this. Let me do less of this and do some things for myself. And part of that required me to kind of go to be in solitude a little bit, or to start to do less for others. And like, just, I was in this place of like stillness. And by stillness, I wasn't really meditating or anything then. I didn't even really know what meditation was back then. Okay. But I just needed to be by myself. I needed to do things on my own. I just needed to just time away from people. So that's kind of how that inner healing part began. And then, the self-love that was the beginning of the self-love, of recognizing like, oh, loving myself starts with this, actually. The self-love is me spending time with myself, spending time away from others, being in solitude a bit. And this doesn't mean, completely avoiding. I wasn't like avoiding all relationships, but it was like, in particular, those relationships, people, or situations where I was feeling that I was the most depleted, or feeling the most drained, or feeling like I was the most out of balance, I started to distance myself from those situations, people, and experiences. And I started to really, so I started to establish, it was like the beginning of me establishing a relationship with myself. And so that's where that self-love aspect started to kick in. So that was I guess that wasn't a mini recap, but just an overview of kind of what I shared. And yeah, let me know what, or, you might not want to let me know, right? Because sometimes when it comes to this, this is not something you always want to share with other people. But I hope whoever is watching this, whoever needs this, that what I encourage you to do is question, where are you noticing areas of your life that you're feeling depleted, that you're feeling drained? Where are you noticing, like, how do you currently define self-worth? Don't Google it. How is it showing up for you right now? Right? Start to write these things down. And is there guilt? Do you feel guilt around it? Are you trying to control certain perspectives? Are you trying to, do you feel this? Do you consider yourself a people pleaser? Do you consider yourself a perfectionist? Do you feel yourself like you're just always wanting to give to other people, but you're not giving to yourself? Where are you noticing the patterns? That's what I encourage you to explore. If you feel led to comment and share what your takeaway was, or what you got out of this video, please do that. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, I totally understand, because for a long time I was at a point where I didn't want to share these things. I didn't know who to talk to about this stuff. And I definitely wasn't going to comment on a video about it, because then people are going to know. People are going to know I'm going through this. And at the time, videos weren't even a thing, right? People weren't talking about this stuff, not that I knew about. So at least write this down in your journal, start to just explore this. And yeah, if you feel led to comment, do so, or you can send me a DM on my Instagram. That link is in my bio as well. If you feel led to share. So I will see you on the next one.